we go. Let's call roll. David Beckham. Ted Cook.
Here.
Buchanan Davis.
Here.
Patrice Horseman.
Present.
Drew John.
Here.
Pete Kim.
Here.
Donna Michaels. Tim Tamure.
Here.
Jonathan Lyons. A quorum is confirmed. Now I will call on the non-voting members. Tom Bushatsky.
Lainey Meeker for Director Bushatsky.
Gail Griffin. Lauren Kuby. Karen Peters. Robin Said. TJ Shope. Stephanie Stahl Hamilton. And Sandra Watson. Roll call is complete. For the record, please remember to identify yourself when making a motion or requesting to speak. Please ensure you are unmuted for any votes. And for those in the room, please remember to leave the microphones on the table for sound quality purposes. In addition, if any board member wishes to depart the meeting at any time, please announce your departure for our recorded meeting minutes. Agenda item number 2, do we have any disclosures of conflict of interest from staff or from a board?
Morning, Joseph Telly, General Counsel. No disclosures have been submitted for today's meeting.
If one arises, will you please declare that conflict? Item number 3, Director's Report. Director McGuire.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Board members, good to see you for what hopefully I don't eat my words in saying is actually a short agenda this time as opposed to last month when I said it was and it wasn't. But I do have a relatively lengthy Director's Report, a lot to update you on. No slides, but just me kind of telling you the lay of the land and some things that we've been doing out here at WIFA. First thing I want to talk about is outside contractors. As you all know, we're a small but mighty staff, but we have been very, very well assisted and aided by the help of outside contractors, especially when it comes to the Long-Term Water Augmentation Fund. I just wanted to give you a couple of quick updates on some changes in those contractors as well as some additions in the folks that we have brought on board. So first of all, HDR remains our main contractor on the Long-Term Water Augmentation Fund, helping us out with anything and everything. But I do want to introduce Jason Phillips. He is a new addition to the HDR staff and is, I believe the official title is Program Manager for the WIFA Long-Term Water Augmentation Program here. So he's here with us today. He and some of his staff have also been co-locating in our offices, which has been really, really helpful for that day-to-day, not having to do everything via email, but 3 dimensions is kind of nice for some of these conversations. So we're very happy to continue to have the help of HDR and very, very thrilled to welcome Jason on board with his wealth of experience coming from the Friant Water District in California. Also want to note that we have officially brought on board our long-term augmentation financial advisors through Ernst & Young. We do have a representative from them here today as well. They are going to be helping us out with all things financial related to that program. We were very, very impressed, especially I think with their expertise and their experience on off-taker discussions. As you all know, that's going to be critical for us as we go through and try to determine how we're going to work both the supply and the demand side of this equation. I think EY is going to be critical in helping us with that, and so we're very happy to have their expertise on board and welcome them to the team. And then we'll also note none of this is official yet, so I'll refrain from using names, but Ben and his team have been working on finding some additional political consulting support as well, and we've identified sort of a Mexico consultant, a California Upper Basin consultant, and a federal, basically DC consultant. And so we'll be bringing those folks on board officially as well here in the next few weeks, and we'll be kind of fully staffed out on that team as we go forward through the rest of Task Zero and then moving full speed ahead into Phase 2. So questions about contractors or anything else we're doing on that side of the equation? All right, next is audit updates, and there's really only 2 that I will give you an update on, but we've had, I think, as many as 4 simultaneous audits happening at WIFA this year. So first of all, another shout out to Denise's team and Lindsay's team, because that is a monumental amount of work to get ready for those. But clearly they're doing a good job, because as you saw in your materials, we did have a clean single audit of our federal programs, which is a very, very big deal and a very, very good thing. So I want to give props where props are due to my team for that. Also, just a quick update on the Sunset audit. Once again, appreciate the time that all of you spent with our Sunset Auditing firm. We do anticipate a draft of their report to come to us in June. So still doing a couple of minor communication with them, sending over documents as they've asked us, but we're well on our way to getting that by June, and we'll keep you updated on that as we can. Next up, we have long-term water augmentation base contracts. We have signed with one team. We are working on the finalization of the conditions to award for the other team, but we are going full steam ahead into the Task Zero schedule and the deliverables that you all approved back at the last meeting, actually. And so be on the lookout, especially long-term water augmentation committee members, and we'll talk more about this in detail for that, but be on the lookout for some additional supplemental meetings that we may need to have as we start to see some of those deliverables from the teams. But just know that we are currently on schedule to do what we have been planning to do in terms of getting the tasks and the task scope of work approved in the summer. Couple more things. So first of all, comments submitted to the Bureau of Reclamation regarding the draft EIS for the Colorado River. Those were also included as a part of your materials here, so you can view those. Very high level, but really appreciate the work of the Department of Water Resources in putting together some detailed comments that we were able to piggyback off of and say, we support what the department has said, and then also make some observations about the need for exchange frameworks and other innovative ways to help solve this solution, or to help find a solution on the supply side, not just the regulatory side. We also have officially opened the Water Supply Development Revolving Fund for the next cycle. So if you go on our website, it should be all located and listed there. So very happy to see that, and really hope that applicants who are interested in that program for low-cost loans in rural Arizona will come flocking. The doors are literally open, so come on over. We're very excited to see those applications. And then I will say, last but not least, you all know we are still waiting on board appointments. I do have it on good authority that we will know at least by the end of this week who the governor's appointments will be. That will then put the Speaker of the House on deck and then the Senate Minority Leader on deck to make those appointments as well. So as soon as I know more, I will let you all know, and then we'll go from there once we sort of have a full complement of who the next generation of the WIFA board is going to be. That is all of my prepared remarks, Mr. Chairman. Happy to answer questions.
Any questions or comments from anybody on the board? Anybody online? All right. Next, we'll go to agenda item number 4, and we will hear from Judah.
Good morning, everybody. Make this nice and short and sweet, so I won't run through all of the legislation of note again, but I did want to update you all that WIFA's requested legislation, Senate Bill 1560, the one that raises the Water Supply Development Revolving Fund loan cap per application from $3 million to $20 million, cleared out of the House committee yesterday. We are almost to the finish line here. We received our first no vote yesterday, which stung a little bit, but I can't be too mad to have only received one thus far. We cleared the Senate unanimously. We're going to come just as close as possible to unanimous in the House so far, but so far so good. And I'm happy to answer any questions about what we're doing down at the Capitol.
Any questions from the board? All right, Judah, anything else? Brief?
No, all good. As always, if you have any questions about bills or want to get involved with anything, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you, Judah. Agenda item number 5, Denise Olson, financial update.
Thank you. So this is just to give you or put some closure to our most recent financing. We actually closed with a $350 million bond sale on March 4th. We have a term of 60 months, which is basically 5 years. We ended up with this month being at an interest rate of 4.55. We do have our collateral requirements of 105%. We are currently invested in U.S. government money market fund yielding 3.5, but that's just a temporary position of investing those funds. Over the next couple of weeks, we are going to be working with U.S. Bank to see if we can find a better strategy and something that's a little bit higher yield for those proceeds. And we'll also marry that up with how we think we're going to spend down that cash. So we've got timing of the money and where we can invest it so we can remain liquid. We also want to point out that our long-term water augmentation fund is still intact, and that is sitting with the state treasurer. As of February, that was earning about 3.68%. And again, this financing was hugely important as it's going to provide a guarantee for two things, our base contracts and also for our in-state financial assistance program. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments from the board? Thank you, Denise.
I will note, sorry, for the record, Mr. Chairman, Donna Michaels has joined us as well.
And Karen Peters has joined us. For those of you online who didn't see her walk in, thank you for being here. Agenda item number 6, Chairman Cook, Long-Term Water Augmentation Committee update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in addition to what Director McGuire reported, I wanted to report on the Long-Term Water Augmentation Committee meeting that was after the February board meeting. And just to set the stage a little bit, some milestones leading up to that. Last October, the WIFA board authorized the first funding cycle for the in-state long-term water augmentation program with approximately $90 million of available funding, and that program was launched a month later in November with final applications due on January 16th. WIFA received 2 applications, one from the town of Queen Creek for $96 million related to the purchase of land in Harquahala Valley with underlying water rights, and one from the city of Surprise for $22 million related to its participation in the Verde River Sediment Mitigation Project, also known as the new Bartlett Dam expansion. Those 2 applications taken together exceeded the available funding. At its meeting on February 18th, last month, the Long-Term Water Augmentation Committee reviewed the 2 applications with good briefings from the WIFA staff, our financial advisor, and representatives of the 2 applicants. As a result of that review, the committee voted to rank the 2 projects. So Queen Creek was ranked number 1, and Surprise was ranked 2nd, and we planned to bring that recommendation to the board. This ranking was due primarily to the timing of the need from the 2 applicants, where Queen Creek would need funding in the next 3 to 4 months, and Surprise would not need funding for another few years. In addition, during its presentation, Surprise doubled its funding request because of recent negotiations among the parties and the Bureau of Reclamation and SRP, and so their funding request doubled from 22 to 44 million, but also their water allocation from this new project also doubled. There was also a good discussion among the committee about possible ways to leverage the available $90 million in WIFA funding once that funding is pledged and dispersed to begin revolving the fund. And we won't get into more of that here right now, but there are several alternatives to do that. But suffice it to say for right now is we do not necessarily need to disperse that funding and collect all of it back in loan payments to have a full fund and to begin dispersing it again. So we want to explore that a little bit more. Many questions remain on the most effective way to accomplish that, and so while the committee briefly considered recommending an award to Queen Creek, that recommendation was not agendized for that meeting, and in order to give us more time to answer some of those questions and have further discussions about the in-state funding cycle and potential future funding cycles, whatever we might do on this funding cycle to close it out, either make a disbursement and decisions that we might recommend to the board as far as revolving that fund will influence what a subsequent cycle might look like. We anticipate, based on, again, the 2 applications that we received was Queen Creek for Harquahala Valley and Surprise for Bartlett Dam expansion. We realize lots of people are doing those type of things and might look at those 2 applications and said, why don't we do that too? So we anticipate, and how do we deal with that if we get literally tens of millions of dollars of requests from either or both of those 2 types of projects? What the board may ultimately decide to do in a future funding cycle will be influenced, as I said, by what is done in closing out this first funding cycle. Consequently, the committee is having another meeting this afternoon with the expectation that we will come back to the board in April with possible recommendations as follows. A funding recommendation for the initial in-state funding cycle of $90 million, timing and funding options for 1 or more additional in-state funding cycles. So I beg the patience of the board for the committee to complete its work on this important first funding cycle on the in-state water augmentation program. So are there any questions? And I hope most of my committee members have a similar recollection to mine as far as what happened at that committee meeting.
Any questions from the board? Thank you, Mr. Cook.
I will also note for the record, Mr. Chair, that we do have Nola Barnes from the Department of Administration as a non-voting member online as well.
Thank you very much for joining us. We're now going to begin consideration of the regular items on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to speak on specific item on the regular agenda may request to speak prior to the chairman opening discussion on that item. For instructions on how to submit a speaker's card, please refer to the notes on the proceedings at the end of the meeting agenda. Do we have any requests to speak on any item so far?
No request to speak at this time.
All right, perfect. We're going to go to agenda item number 7, consideration of the CW SRF Financial Assistance Project Priority List and Fundable Range Funding Cycle of 2026. And Lindsay, you'll lead the discussion.
Thank you very much, sir. So for this agenda item, we are seeking the board's adoption of the March Clean Water Project Priority List. There were no new projects added to the PPL. However, the fundable range was updated to include the City of Scottsdale's West Rural Drainage Project, CW 011-2026. The project is requesting just above $10 million and received a 95% financial assistance index score. And with that, I'll turn it back to you if there's any questions.
Any questions for Lindsay?
I'll just note,
How much money do we have left, or do we have on an ongoing basis on the clean water fund?
How much money do we have available, or do
Yes.
we have in project demand?
Available.
How much money do we have available would be a Denise question. Pass it over. How much funds available on the clean water side? I mean, it's a difficult question.
That's a great question. I would love to bring an update at the next meeting because I was thinking we need to do a full-blown analysis of the SRF funds and see where we're at in terms of disbursements and how much money we have. So plan on an update in the April meeting.
Let's please agendize that.
got it.
Will that work, Buck?
Yeah, and along with that, have we been getting, what's the projection, do we know, of future funding in those programs? I know it was kind of been iffy for the last year. I just can't recall where we're at. What's the prognosis, I guess?
It's definitely a great question, and before too long, we will be preparing for our intended use plans, and we are currently awaiting EPA's official allotment memos for this next year of funding from the EPA's grants. We are expecting the 5th and final year of the IIJA/bill funds, so we'll get those supplemental grants. So this coming year should still have quite a significant amount of funding coming from the EPA. After the 5th year of that funding is done, though, it might drop off significantly from what we've been seeing.
Okay.
Yeah, and that really impacts more our ability to do the cheaper loans, the forgivable principal.
That's why I say that includes the forgivable principal, right?
Yes.
That's really the bulk of the source of our forgivable principal, because
Okay.
that's the money that we have coming in,
Yeah.
right? Reminder that we are in a very good situation, however, as WIFA in terms of our debt portfolio. We will be debt-free in just a couple of years, and so we will have the capacity to meet demand, even if demand skyrockets on these programs. What might not happen is that will be the same level of forgivable principal that our grantees and that our borrowers have been used to over the last few years with all of the supplemental.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any additional questions from the board for staff?
And I do want to note as well, you aren't used to seeing the PPL as its own standalone agenda item. Typically, we put these on consent, but because the Federal Programs Committee was not able to meet until Monday of this week, I'll only put something on consent if it got a unanimous committee vote. And so I didn't know what the committee vote was going to be. That's why you're seeing them on the regular agenda. That's neither here nor there, but just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you, Director. Okay, do we have any requests for public comment on this item?
No request to speak on this item.
Any additional board member discussion? If not, may we have a motion on agenda item number 7 for the Clean Water SRF Financial Assistance project priority list and fundable range funding cycle for 2026.
Mr. Chair, this is Tim. I would move approval of the funding cycle 2026 project priority list.
Thank you, Tim. Do we have a second?
I will second that. This is Donna. Thank you.
Buck and Donna. Not sure who was first. Any additional board member discussion? With no further discussion, we will call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item number 8, consideration of loan resolution 2026-052, City of Scottsdale, CW-011-2026 for the amount of $10,436,918. 0 cents. Scott?
It's good to have those 0 cents. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the City of Scottsdale is requesting approximately $10.5 million to improve flood protection and overall drainage performance at Westworld by addressing existing on-site and off-site stormwater deficiencies, including the undersized interior washes and Bahia Channel. Overall, the existing stormwater system lacks the capacity, lining, and proper conveyance needed to reliably manage stormwater and project site infrastructure during large rainfall events. The project will include construction of stormwater conveyance upgrades along with related culvert and wash improvements designed to reduce flooding risks and better manage storm flows entering and generated within city facilities. Financially, the city retains a AAA credit rating from all 3 major credit agencies related to the city's outstanding general obligation bonds. Ratings for revenue bonds that are supported by enterprise revenue or excise taxes are also highly rated by these 3 agencies. The City Council approved spending $250 million to fund water, wastewater, stormwater, and flood control capital improvement projects. In addition, voters authorized the city to levy a 0.15% transaction privilege and use tax or an excise tax for 30 years to fund improvements and maintenance for citywide parks, including Westworld capital improvements. This tax levy is specifically designed to first pay infrastructure debt service expense prior to be allocated for other purposes. WIFA staff used this tax levy as the repayment source in preparing its 5-year financial performance forecast. As expected, given the city's high-rated debt, future projections have the debt service coverage exceeding the 1.25 coverage threshold necessary to qualify for WIFA's top security level. By upgrading the undersized channels and culvert connections, the project is designed to reduce localized flooding, erosion, and stormwater-related impacts to surrounding public infrastructure. Accordingly, the project is eligible for forgivable principal as a stormwater runoff mitigation project, and WIFA staff is presenting it with a $1 million in forgivable principal. In addition, WIFA Procedure 3.3.1 allows for the use of a non-standard CFR to incentivize loan demand to meet EPA capitalization granting equivalency requirements. As this project meets that requirement, a non-standard rate is proposed that will apply a rate factor of 90% to the base market rate to determine the CFR, instead of the standard method of using the borrower's financial assistance index score, which is 95%, to determine that rate. We should have online representing the borrower, Sonia Andrews, the city treasurer, CFO, and Ann Henthorn, the assistant city treasurer, deputy CFO. And the project manager was Samantha Lemke, and the loan officer was Anthony Nagara. And with that, I'll open up for any questions for
Any
staff.
questions from the board? Have we received any requests to speak?
No request to speak on this item.
Okay, if there's no additional board discussion, may I have a motion on agenda item number 8 for loan resolution 2026-052?
Mr. Chair, this is Tim. I would move for approval of loan resolution 2026-052, City of Scottsdale.
Thank you, Tim. Do we have a second?
I will second that, Mr. Chairman. This is Donna.
Thank you, Donna. Any additional board member discussion? No further discussion. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item number 9, consideration of loan resolution addendum A 2026-053, City of Bullhead City. Is that redundant? Or?
It is indeed, but that's the name.
All right. Just want to make sure. Water Supply Development, WSD-037-2025, request to amend grant to $1,223,799 and no cents, Scott. Anyway, go ahead, take it away.
All right, thank you. So just to recap this project from December, in 2022, the city of Bullhead City acquired its municipal water system, which included 22 wells. Since acquisition, 11 of those wells have experienced operational failure. And to improve system reliability and build redundancy, the city of Bullhead City plans to drill a new well in the northern portion of its system. That well is part of a broader $17.4 million rehabilitation effort that includes a 1 million gallon reservoir, 2 booster stations, and approximately 6,000 linear feet of transmission line. The original water supply development request for a $5 million project with $2 million grant was modified at the December 10th with a board meeting by reducing the grant to $423,799 due to limited grant fund availability in that funding cycle. On February 19th of this year, a borrower previously awarded financial assistance formally withdrew their request. As a result, $800,000 in grant funding was returned to the water supply development funding cycle ending December 2025 and is recommended to be awarded to the city of Bullhead City. The addition of the $800,000 in grant funding will raise the total awarded for this project to the $1,223,799 and no cents under the $2 million maximum that is allowed by that program. And as a grant will have no adverse financial impact on the repayment requirements for this financial assistance. We should have online representing the borrower, Edgar Kajira, the Assistant City Manager of the City of Bullhead City.
Thank you, Scott. Do we have any questions from the board? Have we received any requests for public comment?
No request to speak on this item.
And last call for board discussion. May we have a motion on agenda item number 9 for loan resolution addendum A 2026-053?
Mr. Chair, this is Tim. I would move to approve resolution addendum A 2026-053, City of Bullhead City.
You're on a roll, Tim. Can we have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'm on the roll with them. Third time's the charm. This is Donna. I would second this motion. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna have to start sharing motions. Any board member discussions? If none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Motion passes. Agenda item number 10, pursuit of congressionally directed spending for updated needs assessment. Director McGuire.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Board members, we're coming to you today with this as an agenda item for a couple of reasons, but a little bit of background first. We were recently approached by some congressional staff asking whether WIFA was planning to pursue any congressionally directed spending requests. I'll call them earmarks because CDS is too hard to say. For this upcoming appropriation cycle, and working with that staff kind of talked about what that could look like for WIFA as an entity. These requests need to be relatively specific. So whereas we would have loved to just go and say we would like an earmark for the conservation grant fund or for the long-term fund generally, you need to have a little more specificity identified before you can actually go to a Senate office or a House office and request this. Working with staff, talking with consultants, something that we know we're going to need to do is update our needs assessment. You'll remember that in 2023, we went across the state, asked water providers about their water supply and demand, their infrastructure needs to help you all come up with a target that we used to create our solicitation. And that target was 100 to 500,000 acre feet of imported water over the next 10 to 15 years. We need to update that one because I think it's pretty clear that number will have changed given some uncertainty on the Colorado River, given some uncertainty in terms of infrastructure needs, but also because we need to refine that number significantly to understand where our likely off-takers are, what kinds of infrastructure they need. There's a lot more information that will be helpful as we are developing, especially our off-taker agreement. And so since we know we need to do this, and it is definitely falls clearly within some of the categorization of these congressionally directed spending requests specific to the Army Corps of Engineers. We thought, why not approach the board? Let's see if you even want us to pursue this. And part of the reason we're asking you to do it is that all of these requests do include a cost share element. So if we were to do this, we would be committing WIFA to spending 25% of whatever it is that we ask for. We won't do that without board approval. We won't spend any money ever without board approval. And so this is not necessarily us asking you for a particular dollar amount. It's not us asking you to tell us, or, you know, we're absolutely going to do this. We wanted to know whether this was something the board was supportive of, to give us the authority to go and further pursue a request like this. I do want to note, the reason I specifically said Army Corps of Engineers is that we have spent the last 4 years lobbying against earmarks for the SRF programs, because they take away directly from our base funding, just like Director Davis was asking about, right? So we're not being hypocritical here. We are in fact trying to pursue resources that would not have otherwise been directed to water infrastructure projects that we are responsible for administering. So just wanted to make that clear, because you will hear us many, many times talk about the detrimental effect of earmarks on WIFIS programs. This is different, it is specific, it is from a different pot. So I'm open to questions or discussion from the board on whether you would like to authorize staff to pursue congressionally directed spending for an updated needs assessment.
Any questions from the board?
Sure. More of a comment. I think this idea of seeking an earmark, seeking some funding for an updated needs assessment is a good idea. Something probably that maybe would not have occurred to us if we hadn't had some outreach to get us thinking along those lines. It's clear to me that an updated needs assessment is something that we need to do sooner rather than later. It's getting pretty old right now, and remains a lot of uncertainty with respect to what's going to happen on the Colorado River. So maybe we need actually to have some more information about that and have better informed folks that we would be seeking input from on what their needs might be. And I've been in my public commentary over the last several months been pointing out that we do have this needs assessment of this quantity, 100 to 500,000 acre feet. But my update on that is, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was more if we were to do this again. So I don't think anyone would be opposed to us doing an updated needs assessment. And certainly if there's available funding from the Army Corps to do this, we ought to seek it, in my opinion.
Thank you, Ted. Donna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question. I think I understood that we would be responsible for 25%. Was that the correct number that I heard? And if so, I wonder what the requirements are for us to seek outside rather than internal funding for that 25%, and if we've thought about that.
So Director Michaels, 25% is correct. That would be the cost share requirement that a recipient of an earmark would need to commit to. We had not considered going outside to find that match, because we do have our long-term augmentation fund that we're actively using in pursuit of these projects. And on the administrative side, we have been working with HDR, who will be helping us conduct an updated needs assessment on getting a rough budget for that, just enough that we could ask for a dollar amount certain in the actual request. So we had considered, or we had assumed really, that we would just be in our course of business that we're already spending money on these projects, that would count as our 25% match.
Okay, and I appreciate that. I'm just looking down the road, Director, and wondering, with all of the infrastructure requirements, you know, the ones we just looked at this morning with stormwater, et cetera, are going to cost a lot of money and continue to grow. That need's not going to go away. It's going to multiply. And if there were other sources to help defray our internal costs or match, if that would be something to consider. So I'm just throwing it out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Tim, and then Pete.
Thank you, Chair. So a comment followed by a question. So I'm familiar with how this process works, and there's a couple things to consider. One is the uncertainty of whether this project would be selected and ultimately championed and then make its way into a federal funding bill that ultimately becomes part of a budget that's adopted, that ultimately leads to money flowing to the recipient this time next year. I mean, that's basically the way it lays out. Having said that, a two-part question. One, does waiting a year before starting the needs assessment make it worth the risk, or do we need the needs assessment sooner? That's part one of the question. Part two of the question is, do we even need a needs assessment? I mean, we can refine our number that we're shooting at, but it's whatever number we want it to be. It's let's get as much water flowing into Arizona as we can. So while I appreciate that we did the initial needs assessment, I don't know that I need a new number. Let's just go get water. And if we do need a new number, are we willing to wait a year to even start the process of defining that?
So I'll answer the first one, and then I think I might let fellow board members opine more on the second part of that question. And we absolutely would need that information sooner. And we are already sort of in the process with HDR, again, of figuring out what that process is going to look like, what the structure of that needs assessment, what the methodology would be. I think to the second part of your question, I know I said I wasn't going to answer it, but I'm going to do some answering of it. I think that there's a lot of insight in what you're saying of just go get the water that we can find. Maybe the better way to think of it is less of an updated needs assessment for the purpose of that particular number, and more of an updated needs assessment for the purpose of refining that number in terms of where geographically is that number located, what kind of infrastructure is necessary to serve that number in terms of treatment, in terms of conveyance, where would that water need to be delivered and at what quality. I think there are nuances within the number that we didn't get last time because frankly they weren't helpful last time. Last time we needed a target. This time we need to refine that target a little bit more to understand better how to structure an offtake agreement and an offtake project, or the offtake for a project. So that's, I think, maybe if you want to think of it as something different, more refined than a needs assessment, that may be a better way to go. But I think you're right. It's not just a number, it's nuance within that number.
And Tim, we've recently been in meetings with different water systems where they planned for X amount of water to be available at a certain time, and then they've overbuilt their systems by almost 100%, and now are looking for off-takers. So I would like to be a little bit more exact in the way that we approach it so that we're not asking for money that would be spent. That water then becomes troublesome for conveyance, but then also their cost point is significantly greater that prohibits maybe some of the other systems from being able to tie into that water for their constituents. And I will leave it at that, but it's just been really interesting to see how different water providers and water systems have looked at this and not planned well, and that they've fallen way short, or they have over projected their need, and now they have very expensive water that they need to get rid of. Would that be the short story?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do
Do we have any other question? Ted?
Mr. Chair, thank you. To add on to your comments there, Mr. Chair, and I do appreciate everything that you've said, Tim, as far as let's just go out and get it, and the exact number is probably not that important. So I think I can agree with that in a general sense, and as a matter of fact, that is I think what we're actually doing with the long-term water augmentation solicitation. There's 4 projects or 7, depending on how you're counting. If all of them come to fruition, would be somewhere in the range of 1.5 million acre feet, which is 3 times the upper limit on the current needs assessment that we have. So I like this idea of we need to refine that, not just from total quantity and just a bigger number. It probably is bigger than the 500,000 acre feet. We don't know how much bigger. But there are important nuances, as Chelsea has pointed out, about location, quality. There's also timing. So we know that there's timing issues as far as how long do we have, this is the way I like to look at it, how long do we have to wait versus how soon can we get it? Maybe that's the same thing, and where is that going to be? There's another issue that we are going to have to discuss at the committee level as far as what Chairman Lyons just referred to is having more water than we need at a particular point in time. And I say we, I mean WIFA. And what do we do with it in the meantime? How do we finance that if we don't have an off-taker that can pay for it right now? Do we have standby off-takers? Is there a place to store it? All of those type of things. So understanding more of these nuances about when is water coming, where is it going to come, and in what quantities, and eventually at what cost is important, and we probably need to start working on that now.
In recent meetings with the legislature, they've asked us specifically about timing and the quantity that would be available. And so we'd like to be able to refine our estimates for delivery and work closer with them for that long-term water augmentation goal. Tim, let's go to you. I'm sorry, Pete.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I like the idea of refreshing our numbers, generally speaking. I agree with Tim that a year from now is too long. I think we need to do it sooner rather than later. I think that there's a lot happening right now, not only sort of the looming decisions of the Bureau of Reclamation, et cetera, 27 to 77%. You know, those numbers loom large in my mind. We also have new board members that are being seated soon, and we'll be doing a strategic review. And I think that a general market study, which I think this would represent, would be a great input to a strategic discussion like that. I think that, for me at least, a market study is always two aspects, both supply and demand. And so I would like to see an updated and in the same report, both sides of those questions, both of those questions addressed. So what is the needs assessment, as well as a rescrubbed list of options that include a lot of what has already been said, but just to be clear, right? What are those sources that we could get the water from? How much do they cost, and when do we get it? You know, so having those three questions will actually just give a single report that will represent our best effort and our most accurate assessment at a critical point in time when there's a lot going on and new leadership coming in. I think it's a great idea. My only comment beyond just what the topic should be is we need to get it done sooner rather than later, and I'd rather not wait for funding that comes a year from now. I don't think we have that much time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Pete. Patrice.
Yes, thank you. Two things. Number one, I thought the needs and the timing is an interesting discussion, but I do agree. I think a needs assessment would be beneficial sooner rather than later. My main concern is, isn't there a deadline coming up like very soon on this year's congressionally directed spending? I know we in the county is something Coconino County pursues on a regular basis for various projects, including needs assessments for things like flood mitigation programs. And I think the deadline is fast approaching. So I'm assuming that the staff is cognizant of that and is ready to take action if the board wants to pursue this.
That is correct, Director Horstman. So the deadline for us having all of our ducks in a row to make this request is Friday. It just so happened that the timing worked out that we were able to come to you to ask for this, right? Again, wouldn't have done it without the board's approval in the first place. So it's a long shot in a couple of ways, but if there is money on the table, I don't want to leave it on the table unnecessarily. So that's why we're coming to you, just for this discussion, to see what the board thinks and whether this is something you'd like us to spend staff time on.
Thank
Go
you.
to Karen, Ted, and then I'm going to come back to Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to offer perspective from the state agency that is responsible for a lot of the programs that we pay for with SRF dollars. And a lot of the funding that we receive to pay for staff who administer these programs comes through the SRFs. I really appreciate Director McGuire making that very important distinction about the source of the congressionally directed spending, because there is significant concern about these earmarks diverting money, taking it right off the top of the SRFs and reducing what the states receive. And no appreciation for who administers those grants. And so, you know, our organization, our national organization, I know WIFA's national organization are weighing in on this. It is very important that if earmarks are allocated, that they be allocated from a different funding source than the SRFs. We're eroding this very, very important resource for water and wastewater infrastructure that is already starved. So I just wanted to reiterate that point and appreciate Director McGuire for making that distinction. This is a real problem, like half off the top for these earmarks. And I just wanted to voice that on behalf of my team that is on the receiving end. Thank you.
And I would concur, Director, that we have that same thought and feeling as it pertains to earmarks here in the state, because they lessen our ability for that long-term revolving fund, right? Ted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think that we've answered the question of timing that Tim brought up.
That's why I was going to go back to Tim.
Yeah, okay, and so maybe
Just ask him.
he has a better answer. He certainly does have experience in this area, more than I do for sure. But I'm getting the sense from the board discussion here today that most of us believe that we need to refine or update our needs assessment in some way, even if we have to pay for the whole thing out of our own funding. We should be prepared for that. And as a matter of fact, if we get to a motion, I think that needs to be where we start. And simultaneously seek funding from that does not otherwise come off the top as Karen just mentioned, and interfere with other goals that we or other folks might have. But with respect to timing, would that work if the funds actually come? We've already expended the whole amount to do this update, and the funds come some months or even a year later to reimburse us, basically. Can that work that way or not? That's a question that we'd have to answer. Maybe we don't have the answer today. Otherwise, if not, if it won't work, then we shouldn't pursue it.
Thank you, Ted. Tim, I'm going to go back to you. Any closing thoughts on that? Or additional questions now that we've all given our 2 cents?
Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's been a good discussion. I think it's a discussion that we should keep in our minds and then remind those that come into the seats after us. This, at least in recent years and maybe for the foreseeable future, this will be an annual conversation of an opportunity that WIFA would have presented to it to consider a congressionally directed spending request. And so it's good that we're starting here with this idea. And I appreciate the outreach from the congressional delegation to WIFA. It's good to know that we're on the mind. I will defer. I would say I'm comfortable with staff being enabled to have the conversation and make a good call. Now, that good call needs to be informed with, if we need the needs assessment faster, can we reimburse? I'm not going to opine on that. My past experience has been not, but that I don't know how it works with a needs assessment. I think if we need it, and I also appreciate the full flavor of what goes into this. It's not just about one number, it's about many layers beyond that. My last piece is there's also the potential to phase the work to when the money could be available, such that initial work can be done under one scope of work to get us near-term answers that we need that do not preclude a subsequent phase being funded through a congressionally directed spending request that is a distinct scope of work. So I would encourage staff to be creative in the conversation and how they structure and schedule it. And then with that, I know Director Kim has his hand up. If you need us to give you direction to proceed with it, with the assessment, irrespective of whether it's tied to a congressionally directed spending request, I think we're the board would probably entertain giving you that direction if we need to.
Thank you, Tim. Pete?
Seems to me that we should do this annually, right? Just as a matter of course, to regularly update our understanding of the needs, the supply, etc. And so if that isn't already a matter of standard operating procedure, maybe we can consider making it such. I do think that, a fundamental understanding of the market is required. And I think that from the perspective of the question before us on getting congressional funding for it, we can ask for it and maybe it'll pay for next year's. But as far as the one that we need now, maybe we can pay for it out of pocket. If we can get funding to kind of retroactively reimburse, great. If not, we still need it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pete. Buck?
My comment is, another angle at this too is why I like this discussion and why we're here is because I also have always been in favor of pursuing federal funding for projects, and so I like the idea of us going through the motion and understanding of this process of the congressionally directed spending, because potentially down the road there might be a project where we're going to cobble together state money, maybe some federal money, or some congressionally directed spending, things like that. So in that sense, I really like this idea and want us to pursue it somehow, just to get us used to that, and like I said, kind of grow our chops, understanding of what that process looks like, how we could utilize it down the road.
Thank you. At this time, I want to put Ted on the spot, ask him to consider the motion or a modified motion, and subject to Joe's approval, put that motion on the floor.
Okay, thank you. And I may add something to it that you're not expecting, but that has been discussed here. Okay, so it's not a surprise.
I figured.
Well, so, Mr. Chair, I move that the board instruct staff to initiate an updated needs assessment, particularly with respect to the water importation projects immediately, and simultaneously seek whether or not it would be workable, I'll use that word, workable, to seek congressionally directed spending. And I won't limit to a particular agency, but in accordance with the discussion here at the board about not seeking such funding if it were to deteriorate or negatively impact other important priorities that we or others that we're aware of may have. And in addition to that, for the committee to agendize a discussion about having such an update on a regular basis.
Okay, Mr. Satelli. In summation.
Sure. I believe, Chairman Cook, that the last part of your motion could be more appropriately put for an agenda development, even though it's for the board. I think you could simply just state that you'd like that to be put for the committee, and we can handle it that way and take it out of this motion. Otherwise, I think the motion would be articulated as instructing staff to initiate an updated needs assessment, particularly with respect to the water importation projects, and seeking congressionally directed spending in accordance with the discussion here and subject to the limitations previously discussed. If that is accurate, I think you can make that. I think that motion has been on the record and can be seconded.
Do we have a second? Or is there any other discussion? Well, let's second it and then we can go to discussion. Okay, Buck. Do we have any additional discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Pete.
I will reiterate, if we're going to do a market study, I'd like to have both questions asked, right? The needs and the supply, right? Even if it's only just a high level overview of what are the options. If we're going to figure out how much is needed, then it would also be good in the same report to lay out the options of where it could come from and how fast it could come and how much it might cost. Obviously, it would be estimates, and obviously, it would be a little bit of, some best guess, if you will, but at least a nod towards having both questions answered would be very appropriate, I think, because it's the obvious question to ask next. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
For both Pete and Ted, are you guys comfortable with placing that into agenda item number 12, agenda development?
Sure.
Okay. Yes. All right, thank you. So a motion and a second. I will call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Motion passes. Agenda item number 11, call to the public. This is the time for any additional public comments. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Have we received any additional requests for public comment? Ben?
No request to speak on this item.
All right, thank you. Agenda development. I'm going to turn this over to Ted first, and then Pete, I'll ask you to chime in with what Ted has placed on future agenda development.
Would you like me to summarize what I think I've heard, and then we can go from there?
Sure.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, what I've heard from that discussion, first of all, I will reiterate your request to have a SRF funding availability and forgivable principal update on the next agenda. So that will certainly be there. What I've heard based on the discussion from agenda item 10 is that we would like for at least the Long-Term Water Augmentation Committee to discuss the parameters of an updated needs assessment, which should include both demand and supply side, as well as a discussion about what that should look like on a regular, rolling, annual, what have you basis from WIFA's perspective. Is there anything I missed in that, either Director Cook or Director Kim?
Well, that's good.
Okay. For the rest of the board, is there anything else additionally you'd like to add to agenda development? All right, thank you. Agenda item 13, next meeting, Wednesday, April 15th, 2026, 9 a.m. Director McGuire.
That's all I need to say. That is the scheduled time for the next meeting. I will say don't get too used to fast meetings, but this one was kind of nice. So I appreciate everybody coming and your level of preparation.
Thank you very much. The time is 9:57 and we are adjourned.
And just for the public's record, we will begin the Long-Term Water Augmentation Committee at 10:30. There is a unique Zoom link for that, so you'll log off this meeting and log on to the next one.
Thank you.